Hello, it is 6:01 p.m. We'd like to bring this Ephraim City Council meeting to order. Candace, would you do a roll call?
Is Councilmember Northfeld absent tonight?
He's absent.
Okay. Councilmember Stevens?
Here.
Mayor Scott?
Here.
Councilmember Anderson?
Yes.
Councilmember Beal?
Yes.
And Councilmember Birch?
Present.
I've asked Colby Zeman, our police chief, to give us the Pledge of Allegiance, after which Lloyd Stevens will offer opening prayer. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Father in heaven, we approach thee in prayer this evening, grateful that we can meet as a city council and members of Ephraim City. We thank thee for the free society that we live in and pray for guidance in the decisions that we make. We pray for our country, we pray for our city, and we pray for our state. Help us to follow the founding principles of our fathers. This night we ask you to be with us in harmony in the way we handle our business this night. We ask this in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Colby. And Candace, do you have any public comment?
I do not.
Okay.
Henry Brass just said to ask Katie if he can come speak, but he's not here, so.
Okay. All right, moving on to item 1, consent items. A and B, looking for a motion to approve the consent items.
I move that we approve the consent items. Seconded.
Motion made by Councilmember Beal, second by Councilmember Birch. All in favor?
Yes.
Thank you. Item 2, study agenda. A, review of employee handbook revisions. Candace and John.
Well, that was fast. That was fast. Okay, so John, Katie, and I have been working the last month or two to consolidate quite a few different changes we need to make in our policy manual. Some of these have been being collected since we put it before you about 1.5 years ago, and we're trying to get them all done at once. You'll see that there are some things, you don't have it in your packet tonight because it's just study, and we just barely finished yesterday reviewing them with our attorney. So tonight, John and I are just going to discuss them with you and the things, and then next week it will be in your packet, every single line added, deleted. So our next council meeting, I should say. So more than anything, John and I just want to go through these items with you, and if you have any questions, please ask us. And that way, when you do have it in your packet next council meeting, you can understand what the intent behind this was and what's going on with it. So I'll go ahead and start. The first thing, we had something in our policy manual called qualified part-time. And we actually have one employee that falls under this category now, and they are grandfathered in based on old URS laws. We will never have another, as far as we are concerned right now, we will never have another employee that falls under this status. So our attorney advised us to remove it. Let's see. Sorry.
What page are you on?
No.
They don't have it.
No, it's not in the packet. We're just going to talk about it tonight. And then probationary status. We did make a change on this. Let's see. Did you want to talk about this one? About probationary status?
So if someone's in probation, so we typically have a 6-month probation. During that time, if there's a COLA, they won't receive that. And they could get a merit, but not the COLA.
So let me kind of explain behind what goes on with this. What we were running into is that we would hire somebody, they'd be on a 6 months probation, and there would be a COLA during the probationary time. And so they're literally getting almost a double probationary increase because of the two of them overlapping. So basically what we're doing is we're bringing it so that there are no COLAs allowed during a probation period. And at the end of the probation period, they will get whichever is greater, their 6 month increase or the COLA, whichever is greater, the employee will get at the end of that probation period. Does that make sense?
Let me explain this a little bit more. Usually we hire employees with the intent to give them a raise at the end of their probation. And so what Candace is saying is they don't get double raises.
Yes.
We just get the one.
Yes, and we needed to have something streamlined for that because we were running into some inconsistencies. The next thing, we did put in a clause for equal employment opportunity and reasonable accommodation. We previously, there are several federal, Anthony, you're familiar, there are several federal employment laws that we did not have included in this policy manual, so we're trying to correct that, and that is the EEO and the ADA, so those have been added. We also have a section on hiring freezes, so that there is the option with city council and the city manager, that if there's a situation with the budget, that you can do a 6 month hiring freeze upon review every 6 months by city council. So that's something that we did add in there. We also talked about job creation or extension of hours, basically making it so that there's a process, because you guys have seen this many times. I know the mayor and Margie particularly have seen this many times, where we take a part-time job and we turn it into a full-time job, or what do we call it, hours creep?
Yeah. Part-time position, really slowly get more and more hours, even though that wasn't budgeted or approved.
Yeah.
So this is something that formalizes how that process works, if a department head wants to put that in. Let's see, we revamped our attendance and punctuality. This was also done at the advisement of our attorney. And also I've had the lovely opportunity this past month to go to the SHRM conference for HR. And we had several lectures by HR and employment law attorneys. And some of these changes were also some of the recommendations for them. This was one of them. And it's very important, if you have issues with employees that don't attend it punctually or consistently, that you have something in your policy for that. So that's the reasoning for that. It also includes advance notice of absences, unexcused absences, job abandonment, and also compliance, that we will comply with FMLA law concerning absences. Then we went on to telecommuting, and we did, because telecommuting is actually a huge deal in the employment world today, we had to put something in our policy that defined telecommuting a little bit better. Let's see, John. So I'm skipping a lot of pages because there's a lot of things we didn't touch. So you will remember in the new city manager ordinance on page 20, in the new city manager ordinance, it talked about how it gave the authority to council. So if a city manager fired a department head, that their appeal would be to city council. We formalized that into our policy manual. So that was also added. Let's see. Okay, I'll probably let you do the whole benefits section. This is if we have.
Okay. So benefits, employees that have health coverage from another place, maybe their spouse has health coverage, we would typically give them stipends. And right now it's just set whatever it was, that's just what we've been doing, but we've put in here that employees who elect this option will receive a monthly 401k contribution equal to 50% of the city's contribution of a single coverage premium rate. So that spells out what the city would contribute for those who opt to have coverage, health insurance coverage from another source. Education reimbursement, we just put in there that there's a little bit of a, not a cap, but a kind of a guide so that we would set the reimbursement rate at 60% of the most economical state schools. So there's a really guidance on what is reimbursable for education, or qualified education. It's early retirement. So early retirement, just a little bit more information here. We put in there that city council would have to review and approve anyone who's wanting to do early retirement. And then also, if they are approved for early retirement, that the city would only cover the employee for health insurance, not spouse or family.
Because we've run into a lot of problems with that. Well, a couple of problems.
And then just a little bit of information on there that will follow COBRA and any other federal requirements or laws. Leave. Didn't change anything there.
Holiday, there's something holiday.
Yeah. So holidays, where we have 3 different schedules. We got some people working 410s, some people doing 5/8, some 4/9s and a 4. So just spelling out when there's a holiday on Friday, it would go to the previous Thursday, would be basically a half day. So we take 4 days on the Friday, 4 days on Thursday, or 4 hours on Friday, 4 hours on Thursday. On the 410s, they would take 8 hours on the Thursday, and they'd have to either work the 2 or take this vacation or whatever they prefer. And then the 5/8s, obviously, they just take the 8 hours on Friday.
It's really interesting. Actually, kind of like the Donnie and Marie show from
I wondered if they were gonna sing a duet with us
I
tonight.
know.
So looks like that.
I prefer Sunday to share.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
We have maternity and paternity, we change the numbers on.
And there's that.
It's amazing, there's so many different classifications of employees, even within our small town,
I
our small
know.
city too.
Well, if you think about it, like we're running 10 small companies,
Yeah.
it gets a little complex.
Sick leave. Sick leave conversion. It was in there as 5, anyone who has 5 years or more would be eligible for a sick leave payout at 25%. We've got that changed to 10 years. It was previously 10 years, and went down to 5, and we're putting it back at 10 years. And
Now, do we have an accumulation on a yearly basis of sick leave? Do we have a cap?
yeah,
It's not
Yeah.
annual, it's hours-based.
Yeah.
Hours-based cap.
Right,
so in here, it's capped at 400.
okay.
Let's see, where's the on-call stuff?
Yeah, that one was kind of important. I'll say this while you look for that. Another federal law that is new in the last couple of years is the PWFA, which is the Pregnant Workers Fairness Act. And so we did have to try and put that into our manual. And we did get to use it when Guadalupe was pregnant. And so that was a good experience for us to learn about that new law. I also want to point out on the paternity and maternity leave, when you get this and see through it, see, we did do it like days originally. We've now changed it to hours. Converted those days to hours. It's the same amount. We just converted it to hours because it's easier for payroll. And let's see, what else do we have here? Oh, on-call page 44.
Okay, so those employees that are eligible for on-call, and when they get called out, the prior manual said that they would get a minimum of 4 hours. We changed that to 2 hours, which is what we're doing anyway. We're just making the manual match what we're doing. And then kind of cleaned up the on-call for non-public safety employees, so Public Works and Power. They have the same, if they get called out, they get a minimum of 2 hours at time and a half. If they are on call for a holiday, they get an additional 4 hours. And if they do cemetery, a lot of those are on the weekend, so if they do 1 burial, it's 4 hours. If they do 2 or more burials, it would be 6 hours, and those are both at time and a half. And then for Public Works, during the summer when they're checking the wells, we got, every time they check the wells, it would be half an hour at time and a half. And then the power department checks the hydro. We've got that at 1 hour at time and a half. And then we've taken out some of the others that didn't make sense and were kind of hard to follow when we're inputting time and we're doing payroll.
Okay. So our next thing is our return to work program. We previously have not had a return to work program in our policy manual. Very important for workman's comp that we have that. Let's see, I think we're getting to the end of it, guys. And then we also have at the very end, our fraud risk committee. I have an email address that Marlon's creating that we will put on our website for that. And I think that is about it. But more than anything, we just wanted to go through it with you guys tonight. If you have any questions, because sometimes when we have it in there, trying to file through it and try to follow along where we're at, we thought it'd be good for you guys for us to just kind of talk and explain our intent behind a lot of these things, so that next time you can, before council, really look at it and see if there's any issues and it would probably be when it goes to the action agenda, when I send it out to you guys, if you don't mind, if you see any issue before council, I will get it changed so that it's ready to pass. So, any questions? Do you have anything else? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to item B, CIB bond discussion. Brian.
Okay, maybe a little bit of background here on what this entails. This is for a water project for pipeline replacement at Canyon. There is a slide in there with an image in your packet. If we can pull it up here in just a minute. Basically, this is going to replace pipeline from the hydro at the mouth of the canyon up to the Rose tank. This is pipeline that has been identified in our water master plan as a critical piece of our infrastructure. Right now, 100% of our water is delivered through our springs. We supplement when we need to with the wells. This summer, we ran our wells periodically to kind of help supplement to meet our peak water demand. But normally, during the winter time and during a normal water year, 100% of our water comes through mountain pipelines down into the city. That's down by the bid award. So page 62 in your packet. There we go. There's the image of it. So you're working through our water master plan a couple of years ago. There's a couple of key projects. One of them was we had to stabilize our source and our capacity. So we worked on well number 2 and well number 3 the last couple of years. We did that with just over roughly $5 million worth of work that we put into that. We just finished that up a year ago, basically. Well number 2 came on, well number 3 came online. We've been able to have that assurance this summer. We didn't end up turning it on really at all to put into the water supply. We've been testing it to make sure it's available and usable if we needed to, but we were able to get by with well number 1 and well number 2 kind of switching back and forth this summer. So this is a way better situation. We had the driest summer in 78 years or whatever the number was according to the news outlet. 5 years ago, that was a pretty big deal for us, and this year we were able to weather that with the work that we've been doing. The next step is this Canyon pipeline. So some of you have been around long enough to know that there has been a number of problems up the canyon. The pipeline breaks. It's a big deal to fix it. We back up the water clear to the water tank, and so in places there's over close to 900, 1,000 PSI in this water line. High pressure, it's really hard to repair. It's hard to get parts. They don't make parts off the shelf normally that will fix a 1,000 PSI water line. And this line is it's 50 years old and it's approaching the end of its useful life. We put lots of Band-Aids on it. We're running out of places to put Band-Aids. It really needs to be replaced. So with this being the primary water supply line and also our hydro, it feeds our hydro, this has risen to the top of our priority list for our infrastructure. So what this bond does, we've gone out to get funding, and we're going to go over this a little bit more on the next item, which is the bid award for this. We got a federal earmark for $3 million to do this work.
I was gonna say, Brian, it's not 3,000.
That'll do.
Add a couple zeros.
Couple zeros. So this is a couple of years ago. This has been several years in the making to get to this point. We've finally been able to get through the design of the project. We've been able to get funding cleared from the EPA. We've been able to get all the environmental projects or environmental permitting completed with the Forest Service and EPA. Lots of hoops to jump through to get to this point. So we're finally moving forward with this. We just got to tie up this last piece of this funding. So that brings us to this bond. This bond will be, so let me back up to the total funding. So we got $3 million from the federal earmark. It's being passed through the EPA. We were able to get a match waiver. Originally, there was a 25% match requirement for this. We were able to get a $750,000 match waiver that saved us from paying cash out of pocket. At the same time, we went to the CIB and we got approval for a CIB, $750,000. That's a 60-40 grants loan split. So we got another 60% grant of that $750,000. The loan portion of that is what is this bond related to. So basically it is 40% of $750,000. The number comes out total as you get into the paperwork. Really our loan is going to be $278,000. It's going to be a 30-year loan at 1.5% interest. For the life of the loan, that equates to roughly $69,000. And our annual payment is going to be right around $11,000 or $12,000 a year on that. So what this does is it allows the total project with design and engineering and environmental permitting and construction. We're looking at a $3.7 million project. Our cost for the city is going to be $20,000 cash out of pocket. And this loan, which is going to be basically $12,000 a year.
$1,000 a month for 30 years.
For 30 years. So less than 10% is coming out of our pocket. More than 90% is going to grant on this. We feel really fortunate to be able to get a high of a grant for this project. So if you want to go through the pages, I can step you through about 5 of them that are probably the most important. This is all boilerplate language.
And Brian, sorry, I was thinking about, if we were to not move forward at this time and we wait for the emergency, it would be much more costly.
Oh, yeah.
The problem with emergencies is they always happen when you're not expecting them, when your guys are out for the weekend or the deer hunt. It's the middle of the night, it's the middle of the winter, we can't get equipment up here.
But wouldn't
Fix it.
it would certainly be more expensive. We
Cost
wouldn't have time to get
efficient.
grants and.
I mean, we put lots of Band-Aids on this and we don't want to waste time with Band-Aids anymore. We want to replace it and make sure that it's reliable. This is critical infrastructure for us. And we feel like the timing is right. We've been able to acquire more than 90% grant funding for this project to allow this to go forward.
Brian, before you get into the paperwork, I'm just looking at our image up here.
I need to scroll.
And so as I'm looking at that, there's the blue, that's existing water line. Is that the water line that's being replaced with this new water line is the yellow line going up? Or are we replacing where the yellow line is?
Okay, good question. in your packets, you can't see the whole picture. Page 60.
There you go. That's it.
There it is.
There you go, okay. We have an old line and a new line that comes down from the Lake Hill tank. The old line is the one on the bottom. It comes down through the line. There used to be a hydro plant there up by the ropes course. About 10 years ago, we replaced from the ropes tank down to the old hydro with some new pipeline. So that portion is done. We wanted to do that because we've had lots of issues with landslides in that area. Pipe was pulling apart. We took the old pipe that was bell and joint and we put it with just plastic fused poly pipe, HDPE, so there's no joints. So it has a little more resilience to the ground moving underneath it. This side now is the other side. It's the newer line that was done in the 80s. The original line was done way back when, early 1900s.
This is the one you can actually see from Canyon Road, like you can.
If you go up left-hand fork or New Canyon Road,
Yeah.
you can see pipeline in the road. Part of this is exposed in the road. So this part here, the part in yellow is the part that's going to be replaced. Like I say, it was put in the 80s, early 80s. We're approaching 50-year lifespan on this, not quite, but just shy of. And we've made lots of repairs. Right as it comes down off the hill and turns the corner, sometimes we've had a power outage at the hydro, and it's caused our jet to shut at the hydro, and it sent a pressure wave back up the line.
And I'm a witness to that.
And it blew out a massive section of our pipe, and it was not fun to repair, and you can't hardly get parts for it.
Would have been a great swimming hole.
It made a
In
massive.
fact, you couldn't see the bottom of it.
Yeah, it made a massive hole, and it was quite an ordeal to get it repaired and get that resolved. In 2018, the last time we had a record drought, one of the issues we had was this pipeline broke in the middle of a drought. So our well broke, and then the pipeline broke, and all we had left for all of our water was whatever we had left in the tanks, which was about 1 day of storage. We had to scramble and hurry and get this repaired. We got it repaired within a couple of days. At least we could get a little bit of water coming back through at that point. But yeah, so in the big picture, we'd like to replace the whole canyon line. This is the worst stretch of it. This is where we've had the most problems, the most issues. We want to just put some new pipe in that's pretty good. That will reset the clock and give us another 50 years on that. So we're going to call this phase 1 of the canyon line replacement. We were able to get, like I say, we're able to get funding for this, and we think we're in a spot to go forward with it. So just real quick on the paperwork, I don't want to bore you to tears, but I also don't want to be accused of trying to slide stuff past you without going through it. I'm going to start on page 21. Nope, I'm going to back up. Page 9 starts the bond resolution. There's two parts to this. There's a bond resolution and a parameters resolution. So as I go through the pages, there's a couple of key points. By the way, this is drafted by our attorney that we hired. It's a special counsel bond attorney that's been approved by the state for this. So this is language done by our attorney that meets the requirements of the state law. Over on page 12, basically in bold in the middle of the page, a resolution. Yeah,
Page 12 of the packet.
in the packet, yeah.
Page 4 of the thing, but 12.
Page 4 of the bond resolution, yeah. Basically, it just says, we're gonna call a public hearing. We're pledging funds out of the water fund in order to pay for this loan or this bond. And it sets out the terms of that. So, and I'm gonna go quickly. If you want me to slow down.
I was hoping
to slow
to
down.
Brian,
Whereas-
one question that I have is, I know we're pledging money out of the water fund. Should we also include the electrical fund, the power fund, since this is connected to the hydros?
That is a good question. I think it is eligible if we choose to do that. It's probably a conversation that we can have and square away prior to the final adoption of this.
I think it's something we need to consider.
I think we are capable of doing this at this point. with our water fund, but we can talk through that and just kind of weigh the pros and cons of that, see what makes the most sense for that. It would be eligible, I would think.
Especially if it's a phased thing, we may want to spread it out or the next phase would likely be a few years from now, we're hoping. It's not.
We need to acquire funding.
Yeah, we need to put it on our docket for congressionally directed spending.
I'm ready.
Just real quick,
It's a
since you
no.
brought up the phases, we do have one more phase that is funded. That's the next highest priority. That's the very top from the tunnel down to Big Box. We took a tour of that. We talked about it earlier this year. There's a spot where there's a stream crossing that's suspended above the stream. We'd like to get that underground because that is basically inaccessible to equipment for 9 months out of the year. We'd like to really just make sure that we're not having any problems there. So that is another phase. It's a smaller piece. We do have funding for it. That's not on the agenda tonight, but that is coming in the future. So, just real quick, page 13, the third whereas of this, our existing water debt. Most of that water debt is from a couple of main projects. So one of them is from well number 2, one is from the tunnel, one is from well number 3. We, in order to make our match for our grant, we had to secure a match. So that was a loan that we took out for each of those projects, basically to cover our match for that. That's where most of the existing debt comes from. If you go down to the bottom on that same page, page 13 of the packet or 5 of the resolution, section 1, that basically lists the not to exceed. So this is a protection that's in there in case anything goes wrong, anything unforeseen. It lists a not to proceed. That total amount is up to $500,000, 2.5% interest, 35 years. We don't expect that. It's just a safety clause in case something goes to that. What really we're expecting is the smaller amount, which is listed later. So page 15, notice of public hearing. We will have a public hearing on this December 3rd. So this is a study agenda so that you can just become familiar with the project, ask any questions, if we need to make any changes in the language or anything like that. We should have all that resolved before the next meeting, public hearing on the 3rd of December. That same page on page 15, the bottom paragraph, it lists again the not to exceed figures. Some of this is repetitive. The next page over, page 16, is the actual.
Brian, sorry, I just have Katie on my phone. Just to clarify, the parameters resolution will come before you November 5th.
So the next council meeting.
So the next council meeting, you will have the parameters resolution, and then the December, you will have the public hearing.
For the bond.
Yes, for the general.
For the general resolution.
For the general resolution. So you'll see this as a 2-part process.
Okay.
That December meeting.
Yeah, thank you. That's helpful. The actual estimated total cost, middle of the page, page 16. 1.5, not to exceed 1.5%. Total amount of $278,000. With interest of $69,090 for a total cost of $347,090. So that's where it spells out the terms of the loan. And then the rest of it is very similar. I'll point you to one page as we get into the parameters resolution. Page 28 of the packet.
Okay, just so you know, Brian, your page numbers and our page numbers are not
They're not matching up.
They're not matching up.
So this is page 8 and then page 28. It goes to basically the amortization of the loan. Yeah, he's got it on the screen. That just tells you the payment schedule. On the far right column is our annual payment. So it starts at $12,000. By the time we finish, we're down closer to $11,000 per year on the annual payment. And then without boring you further,
Before you leave, do we ever prepay, and pay more, put on it so that we can pay it off sooner? Or do we always try to just maintain the current pay schedule? Or is there a penalty if we were to pay additional money to?
so I think we have the ability to pay early if we choose.
1.5% though is,
I agree. I'm just wondering if that's something that we do, or do we just try to maintain this schedule?
Historically, where we can get a really good interest rate, we have not chosen to prepay that. We've paid other higher priority accounts if we've had extra money. But I think we do have the ability without penalty. That's kind of the main gist of that. I won't take you through every single page of that. Like I say, a lot of this is boilerplate. It was written by our attorney on our behalf. This is a requirement for the basically a state loan. The bonds will be sold to the highest bidders per the terms of the resolution. And this will become basically a debt payment out of our water fund. So any questions? I went over that fast. There's a lot of language there, some details. And again, no decision tonight, just study.
You're gonna go through a lot of city councils before it gets paid off.
Any questions?
And I suspect you won't be here either, right?
Any questions, council members? Thank you, Brian.
Thanks for your work.
Yes. Moving on to item 3, action items 3A, bid approval for lower penstock replacement. Garrett, you're here to do that. Hello, welcome.
I am. Thank you, Mayor and Council. Appreciate the opportunity to come before you. My name is Garrett Wilden. I work with Jones of the Mill Engineering. I had the privilege of being Brother Birch's student 30 years ago at Gunnison High School, so it's been a minute.
We won't hold that against you.
Well, thank you.
I mean, not that you were his student,
Hopefully I don't.
the fact that you're from Gunnison. we won't.
Oh.
I thought you were discussing the way I taught him.
No. I've seen your teaching, it's fine.
Well, I just, I hope the mayor and council really appreciate Brian and your staff, and I'm sure you do. I just want to tell you, they're amazing. To have 90% grant on a water project is pretty phenomenal. That is not industry standard. So that's really great. And working with Jeff and Corey and Katie through this process has just been wonderful. You've got a wonderful staff to work with, so appreciate you letting me.
Thank you.
So for the bid, so as Brian mentioned, he went over the project, and maybe if we could just, if you wouldn't mind bringing up that map again.
on that.
Yeah. And so what we bid in the project was, so it's the yellow line that you see. In addition to that, at the lower hydrant plant, there's a few piping changes that we're making so that they have the opportunity to move the water around when a line gets shut down. And during this project, we will be shutting down the lines. So that's kind of the first part we want to start with, so that the water can be rerouted to take as much as we can, avoid going out of service. One other part that was included was the darker orange line at the top. If the city had their way, and if Jeff had his way, he wanted to bring a line across to fill the ropes course tank from that line. And so we did include that in the bid, but you'll see that was taken out. So if we could just go to the bid and look at the numbers that came in. This sheet, this is what it looks like. And John, if you can rotate to the bid tab. That's it. Yep, sorry, I apologize, it's so small. I'll try to explain it. So the city did actually receive 7 bids because this is a very unusual project. To have a 900 PSI pipeline is very unique, and it's something that really challenged suppliers. to come up with. There were 2 bids that had to be rejected because they didn't have numbers. They called, or we looked at them, and their numbers were not, they did some double checking and they pulled their bids. There was one contractor that wasn't qualified. Because we knew this was a very unique project, we had some strict qualifications that the contractors had to meet. We don't want this to be a contractor's learning experience. Yep.
Neither do we.
Yes.
So they had to have,
We've had that, Gary.
they've had to have welding experience on a high pressure pipeline. And so these contractors that you see here that are listed, according to the contract documents, you have to accept the lowest qualified bid. And so the lowest qualified bid would be that number 1 would be VanCon. And so if you look down at their bid, their total bid for everything they wanted would have been $4,407,480. The next bid was $4,558,000. So when you see bids that close, it gives us a good feeling that, you know, we've got 2 good contractors here that have very close bids. It's a great bid.
What's that deduction at the end? It says, total deductible.
So great question. So for the bidding process, you can't really take out any item that you want to change the bid. So that has to be announced up front. So if you look at some of those items off to the side in parentheses, it will have deductible. And so that deductible, that is the connection between the ropes course tank. It was the darker orange piece that you saw on the map, that if we had all the money in the world, we would love to make that connection. But if we didn't, and we had to reduce the bid, that would be our deductible items. So those are the deductible items. And if you look down just lower in that spreadsheet, you'll see where it says total deductible. It's in the bottom table. And so as we looked at that, just to do that cross connection would have been $1,438,000. So that would have been a really expensive piece. It's mainly due because nobody makes a 700, or the very, very few companies make a 500 or 600 PSI valve. And so you see that in the very bottom item. If you look at item 1-35, the ropes course tank connection, that had those valves in it. And you'll see for VanCon, their bid for just basically the valves and that connection alone was $970,000. So as we talked about that with Jeff and Brian and Corey, our feeling was, you know, if it would have been able to be funded with the project, it would have been reasonable to do. But if the city was going to have to fund that on their own outside the project funds, you're probably better off fixing the old line, as Brian called it, from the ropes course tank up to the Lake Hill tank, and just fix that line by itself. That would give you a way bigger bang for your buck.
Are we, just a question, I guess, for Brian or everybody, is this the part where there's 900 and even 1,000 PSI? Is this reducing any of that? I mean, are we outliers? Are we a unicorn? Should we just be in the 400 or 500 or 600 max PSI? This seems like it's going to blow.
This is not typical. Really, the reason why we have that much pressure is to maximize our hydro production. So it was designed that way, and it was designed to get as much pressure as we can feeding the hydro plant.
But this project it's going to do nothing to reduce.
This
that.
doesn't reduce any pressure at all.
It's just a new way to contain it, safe, or it'll last another good.
It just resets the clock on us, and it's another reason why this pipeline is so important. We don't want this to go away We want to do it right. We want to reset the clock and get another 50-year lifespan on it. Just one quick comment. The amount of money that we can do for that connection that connects the two lines, that allows us to move the water either direction. We've had issues on both lines. There's landslides and there's breaks and there's things like that. Jeff is up there right now fixing this line that we're about to replace. There's a hole in it. He's up there fixing it right now. That's why he's not here. We figure we can replace almost the full stretch of pipe all the way up to the tank for the cost of connecting those two. We can switch it at the tank. It's just harder. It's not as accessible. You get an extra month of use down lower. You lose a month because of snow and things like that up higher. But that's something we weigh carefully. If we can come up with money, we'd love to do it. As of right now, we're going to pull it until we come up with money.
Thanks, Brian. And the pressure, it's hard to contain with the pipeline, but on the other side, it's a huge advantage for hydropower. To have 900 PSI for a hydropower makes it so you can generate a lot of energy for the city. So it's a necessary evil. So in looking at the bids and the funding that was available, so maybe we could go to the next sheet that looks like this, that shows the budget. Okay, you got it. You're ahead of me. Thank you. So it's line number 14 that says contractor. And so we had 3 million for the contractor. We had 3,319,000 to do the project. And so if you look back at the bids, if we took out the deductible, it brought the bid down to $2,969,480. So we feel a lot more comfortable going with that. That would give us funding to also put some cathodic protection on the pipeline. And so what that is it's usually a piece of magnesium that attaches to the pipe as an anode, and it uses it as a source so that the pipe doesn't rust and corrode. In looking at your existing pipe it's a ductile iron pipe, which is metal outside and it has cement mortar lined inside. But how it's corroded is from the outside in. And so the soil that's been against the pipe has corroded it. The new steel pipe will be epoxy coated, but then as a second measure of protection, you can do this cathodic protection. And so if you look at the budget sheet, I just added some, we haven't got exact estimates, but these will be pretty close. So that's line item number 11, cathodic protection. It's about 15,000 to do the design, and it's about 100,000 to install it. So with the contingency funds that you have available, you should be able to do both cathodic protection for the pipeline. So, any questions?
We prefer the belt and suspenders.
Yep.
We want as much slack as we can get out of this pipe.
Absolutely. Yeah, this, it's a unique piece of infrastructure where it deals both with your culinary water and your hydro plant. So very critical. So just looking over the budget, I feel comfortable recommending Vancon. Vancon, they were the lowest qualified bid. We've worked with them in Beaver. They did their hydro plant and the welding of their pipe on their project. They do a lot of work for the Central Utah Water Conservancy District, which is a huge water authority up in northern Utah. Right now they're working on a welded 60-inch pipeline. And so they're very confident. They're excited about this project. And we think they would be a great contractor to work with. So as we talked with Jeff and Brian and Corey and Katie, we'd recommend to the council to award the project to Vancon and allow us to begin moving forward with getting them under contract. I have a notice of award here tonight, if that's something the council wants to entertain.
Let me see it, please. Thank you.
And so what the notice of award does is it allows us to begin the bonding process and agreement process with the contractor. So this isn't the actual agreement with the contractor, that will come later. This just allows us to move forward.
Contractors get their bonds for the project.